Refugee advocates have welcomed a parliamentary committee report into immigration detention that was released today. The 9-month inquiry examined the country's detention system and recommended reforms. The opposition backed 16 of the recommendations. The government is yet to detail its response. Political correspondent Tom Iggulden reports.
There's been a string of reports into suicide, violence and despair in detention centres, but this is the one that brings them all together, with the weight of a parliamentary committee behind it.
It's a very welcome report which provides a powerful record of just how damaging and costly the current detention policy is.
First, the evidence. The report says acute mental illness is widespread across the detention network. Almost 90% of detainees suffer clinically significant depression, half have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and a quarter report suicidal thoughts. It highlights the evidence from one witness. The psychologist pointed out that an immigration detention centre is not a psychiatric hospital, but has some of the characteristics of one. The length of time in detention was found to be the key cause of mental breakdown. Several psychologists said 3 months was the limit for most detainees. The report recommends that no detainee should be kept longer than 90 days.
Time limits on detention, dealing with the mental health issues, getting people out of remote facilities. These are all very practical and much needed steps.
Less harmful, far more cost-effective alternatives are available and should be pursued.
But political parties are already split on the suggestion to limit time in detention. The opposition is against time limits altogether.
We believe that mandatory detention should be in place until someone's status has been determined. That's what we practiced in government.
The Greens want the 90-day limit enshrined in law.
If we don't legislate, I think we set ourselves up for fail.
The Labor chairman of the committee doesn't want limits to be mandatory.
You don't necessarily require legislation. What you require is good faith.
About 2/3 of current detainees have been held for more than 3 months. Mr Mellon wants that percentage published regularly.
It's like a shame thing. You know, the department, the minister would obviously be under scrutiny as to whether those figures are going up, whether they're stable or whether they're going down.
The report also recommends depriving the immigration minister of his current obligation to act as a guardian of unaccompanied children in detention. Refugee advocates have long argued the minister shouldn't act as jailer and defender for those who they see as the most vulnerable people in the system, and the committee agrees.
These people need an advocate. That's the reality. And it needs to be seen that they've got an independent advocate.
No, we believe the existing guardianship arrangements are appropriate.
And the opposition saying no to another key recommendation, that detainees be given the right to force a review of their security assessment.
In some cases, it appears ASIO has got their assessments wrong because those assessments in the past have at times been reversed.
It's nothing against ASIO, but these assessments need independent review. We are detaining people without charge. We are depriving them of their liberty, and in some instances for a very long time.
Such cases account for many of the 1/5 of detainees now in the system who've been locked up for more than 18 months. The report recommends some could be released on strict conditions under a control order.
I do not accept the fact that someone is a non-citizen, that they get second-class rights when it comes to their liberty.
The Coalition opposes that recommendation too.
Our recommendation is to restore offshore processing on Nauru.
The committee's Labor chairman is not a spokesman for the government, and he admits he's got a fight on his hands to convince colleagues to take up the report's key recommendations, particularly those opposed by the Coalition. But refugee advocates are staying positive, saying this report could be the breakthrough they've been looking for to force a major change in government policy.
The government must urgently respond to this report, and as part of that, to commit to honouring the promises that it made over 3 years ago in its policy, which were meant to implement a new detention regime where detention was only to be used as a last resort for the shortest possible time.
The government did point out today that almost 3,500 detainees have been moved into community detention since the bridging visa program was expanded in October. Tom Iggulden, Late Line.